And that's why it's such an incredible clue for self-love, because we have our own narratives that aren't serving us either, you know? And when we apply compassion to ourselves, now we can sidestep the narrative and really address what's really going on deep inside ourselves. And instead, really tend to what you really are, which is not the story by any means. You know, what you are is so much deeper than this story that you've constructed.
Having that deep and truthful honesty means that you are, in a way, letting go, and also, in a way, being open too.
Yeah,
At the
right.
same time, a relaxed mind creates inspiration, connection, fresh ideas, and solutions to intractable problems. We're going to explore how you can relax into presence. This is the Releasing Mental Tension podcast with Rich Life. I feel like one of the biggest gifts that we miss out on giving ourselves is the gift of compassion, of self-compassion. It's a huge part of self-love. We're going to be exploring that subject today. I have on the Releasing Mental Tension podcast my guest, Scott Grusky. You might have seen him before. He was with us in our last episode, and that's because he and I are going to co-create a beginner's guide to self-love course that's upcoming. And if that's something of interest, you can reach out to us. But thank you, Scott, for joining me on the podcast today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited about this subject, and I just feel like compassion is one of the most powerful tools that we can possibly have in our journey towards self-love. So this topic is really, really big, and I'm so glad that you proposed it.
Yeah, well, thank you. I was having a conversation with one of my clients, and then I was sharing the ideas that I was sharing with that client to Scott, and he was starting to light up. So I felt like it would be something that I wanted to bring in here into this space. So there's three ways that we can interact with other people when we are listening and speaking to them. And one of the ways is sympathy. And in this way, like, you are saying, I that sucks for you. Like
Yeah.
that's really tough, and you don't really feel it. You don't take any of that in. You don't connect with it, but you do feel like, oh, it's kind of like, oh, too bad kind of
Right,
feeling.
right. Exactly.
And then there's empathy. And of course, a lot of research shows that empathy is more powerful. It connects more. And with empathy, you are taking them in, taking their feelings on. It's kind of like, that sucks for you, and I feel it too.
Right,
And the hard part about empathy is that it can be very draining. Like, Scott, you were talking about empaths and
right.
how they tend to burn themselves out. They tend to need more rest and recovery time.
Yes, it's really true. I mean, there's the classic dynamic where empaths often seem to find themselves in relationships with narcissists. It doesn't always have to happen, but it can happen. It's a pattern because the empath is vulnerable and happens to provide a sort of supply to the narcissist that's very coveted by the narcissist. But of course, the problem is, like you said, the empath gets very drained in a setup like that because it's, you know, the empath is not really getting their needs met. And so it's not really in a long-term fulfilling kind of, exchange.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like only a take situation.
Exactly.
And one of the things that I really tried to do was be more empathetic when I was a weight loss coach. And I would get to the point where it was like end of the week, and I would just cry. I would just couldn't help but just releasing all of this pent-up energy and sadness and frustration that I was carrying from being so empathic.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting because so often the reason why energetically you get drained as an empath is to some degree at least because you aren't really practicing self-love. You're not really tending to your own internal environment. You're somehow blocking your access to your own self to some degree as you're being this empath.
Yeah.
And so it's fascinating to me because the third thing I will let you talk about, but is compassion. And
Yeah.
that one does not train you. And that's what's so interesting because it points to it being a very, very powerful tool for self-love.
Yeah. Compassion is something that is a more deep way of listening, in my opinion. One of the things that you're really focused on in empathy is the story of what's going on. You're really engaged with it, you're feeding it almost. But with compassion, you aren't engaging with the story, you're engaging with the feelings.
Right?
You're engaging with what it feels like for that person. And it's a recognition of a shared humanity. So
Yeah.
in compassion, your heart goes out to them
Right.
rather than your heart taking them in and storing and kind of like absorbing some of their pain. That might feel great for them, but it's not of service to either of you in the long run
Yeah.
because you
That's
can't,
such a good point.
yeah, you can't be empathetic for very long, and but you can be compassionate more of the time because it actually feeds you if you're really
Right.
being compassionate. And
Yeah,
that,
it's so fascinating. So fascinating because, you know, we could say that at some level, when you're practicing compassion instead of empathy, you are not getting sucked into the drama of the other person. And that frees you up to really get at the depth of what's happening. Because so often the drama or the narrative really is not serving that person. And that's why it's such an incredible clue for self-love, because we have our own narratives that aren't serving us either, you know? And when we apply compassion to ourselves, now we can sidestep the narrative and really address what's really going on deep inside ourselves. You know, I love
I,
these distinctions.
yeah, I call that being honest. And honesty to me really means that you are feeling what you're feeling. You're not trying to push it away. You're not trying to sidestep it. You're not trying to escape it or run away. But you're slowing down and you're feeling it and being honest with yourself about what's going on within you. Now, that doesn't mean that you're feeling the story of it. So you
Right.
kind of have to set the story of aside to be honest with yourself because the mind lies to you all of the time. At
Yes,
least
you're
mine does.
so right. No, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, that's what's so amazing because compassion allows us to bypass, you might say, the role of the ego. When you apply compassion to yourself, you're giving a channel that bypasses that slippery, deceitful component of the ego.
Mhm.
You know, and so often when we are first committing to self-love, it's a little overwhelming. Okay, I like in principle the idea of practicing self-love. Let's say you've got to that point. But how? How do you even do it? You know, because we are given no instruction manual, and the culture at large doesn't seem to give us very many clues, you know?
Mhm. Yeah. And it is in a lot of ways how we relate to ourselves.
Right,
If we're relating to ourselves from a place of sympathy or empathy, which we can do both,
right,
that just means that we are kind of feeding the
Right.
stories and the narratives that we're telling ourselves, and it doesn't really serve us. It just kind of only serves to strengthen the fire. It's like throwing logs or gasoline on
That's
a
right.
fire that you don't necessarily, you want to honor that it's burning, but you don't want to ignite it further because
Yeah.
it can burn.
Would you say that this is so interesting to me, and it's making me wonder, would you say that if you were to practice self-compassion, it involves some degree of surrender in the sense like that you are not going to play into your narrative. You have to truly practice compassion, you have to let go. There's a letting go of that tendency to want to go to the story, as you call it, and instead really tend to what you really are, which is not the story by any means. What you are is so much deeper than this story that you've constructed. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I like that that's a part of this process is that surrendering not to the story that we're telling ourselves, but to the current moment experience.
Right.
That is a big piece of being present with where you are right now and what I like to call being honest with yourself.
Yeah. Right.
Having that deep and truthful honesty means that you are, in a way, letting go and also, in a way, being open too
Yeah.
at the
Right.
same time.
Yeah. It seems to me that this compassion really allows us to see a much bigger picture of who our true essence really is, you know, because, social conditioning and our culture and all these things lay on all this kind of false narrative about who we think we are. And it can get us into all kinds of messy situations. But when we're ready to practice self-love, this gives us a pathway to look beyond all of that and really just get in touch with, oh, okay. So yeah, I had all that stuff going on, but that wasn't really me. What's really me is what you might say I'm a drop of pure love, you know? That might be what I really am. And if I can look at it that way, I see that as very profound form of compassion because I'm saying, no, no, I don't have to listen to all of those, you know, um, building blocks of my own false definition that was so limiting, you know. And when they come up, and if they do come, and it's fine, because of course that's going to come up. But now we can say, okay, yeah, I see that, but I also am choosing to see something much bigger.
It is a zooming out. Like we were
Yeah,
talking in the beginning before we started recording about how the one of the elements of compassion is understanding. And I feel like there's a lot of understandings that can help you in your level of compassion towards yourself and towards others. And those understandings are really understanding the nature of your own mind, knowing that thought is a temporary creation and that feeling is a reflection of thought,
yeah,
carrying that understanding in your heart, knowing that it won't last forever,
right,
that
right,
sometimes the mind lies to us and tells us this is going to be the rest of my life.
exactly.
But that's never true. It always changes, even if
Yeah,
it doesn't seem like it will.
right. Now that really is so powerful to hang on if we can to that understanding you're describing, that we have a barrage of relentless thoughts that are going to pass through us. And that doesn't change. That's the human experience. It's what we might call our predicament. But what's so amazing is that we do have the ability to decide how much we want to latch on to those thoughts or let them pass right through. We have that free will, and it's an amazing thing because if you see, I think a lot of people are scared by their thoughts because they think that they mean something more than they have to mean. If you're having that thought, it's natural to think, well, it must mean something. But actually, I would propose that it could possibly mean absolutely nothing. You know, we have that freedom to think that way about it and to say, oh, well, that passed through. I mean, it's interesting, but no, I'm not attaching to that one at all. That one I'm just going to let go right through. And to me, that is an incredibly powerful component of self-love. And it's also a form of compassion because, you know, um, I guess I feel pretty strongly about the fact that if you're having a mean thought about yourself, it's not helpful. It's never helpful, right? In which circumstance is it helpful to have a mean thought about yourself? I would say never.
I think at some level, the mind is very machine-like, and it doesn't know what helps you or what doesn't help you in the grander sense of
Right,
things.
right.
Like it just says, it's very kind of computer-like, and it says, oh, this is what they want. And do you want to know how it knows? How it calibrates what thoughts to give you?
Yes, I do.
It does it based off of attention, your level of attention. If you give your thoughts a whole bunch of energy and attention, your mind says, wow, that thought is important to that person. I am going to give more like that.
Yeah, yeah.
And
That makes so much
so
sense.
when we become fearful of our own thoughts, when we give them a lot of
Yeah,
negative energy or positive energy,
right,
then our mind kind of trains itself to give us more like that.
right,
And that's why we can be so cruel and mean to ourselves.
right.
It's not because we deserve it
Absolutely.
or we have some penance that we have
Right,
to bear. Really, it's just because we've accidentally, innocently trained our minds to give us those thoughts based off of how we use our attention on our thoughts. We don't let them flow through us like you were describing.
right. And that's so powerful what you're saying because I feel like it gives us, a way of looking at those thoughts that allows us to be more compassionate once we understand, how you described these thoughts it's an innocent mechanism, is basically what you described. It's an innocent mechanism. Nobody did anything wrong. It's very innocent that the mind thinks that if you're going to give a lot of attention, it's going to feed you more. That in and of itself does not make it bad. But unfortunately, it has the side effect of often getting us into a very anxious or neurotic state of mind once that cycle begins. And I think that if we can see how innocent the mechanism is, it gives us a way of not taking it so seriously. You know, it's not like it has some deep underlying meaning that proves that you're doomed or something,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When you start to take your thoughts less seriously, that starts to become the key towards your freedom. I
Right.
also feel like there's something that's so essential that I want to swing back around to.
Sure.
The other part of understanding that I feel like helps us to have compassion for ourselves and others is the understanding that we have within us well-being,
Right.
that even if it's being covered up in the moment, that we have an innate level of connectedness, love, and joy. That is the core of who we are.
Right.
And we might miss sight of that, but kind of keeping that understanding in our hearts helps us to keep that compassion alive for
Absolutely.
ourselves, even if we lose sight of it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, and I love the way you described that. I feel it kind of reinforces my little technique, which is thinking of myself as a drop of self-love, a drop of love, is so complementary to what you just described,
Mm-hmm.
because that really allows us to have available whenever we need it a way of remembering what our home is and why we don't really need to take these thoughts seriously if they are not in alignment with that view of self, you know?
Yeah. You can look towards that in a way
Right,
when you're listening to yourself or others, even when you're in a place of lostness and it doesn't seem like you can find it.
right.
You can look towards that. And actually, that kind of segues into what I feel like will be our next adventure, which
Okay.
is we're going to be hosting a webinar, and it's going to be called Orienting Towards Self-Love. And I was just thinking about it earlier. I feel like I was like, what should we call kind of this thing? And I'm like, should we call it a school, the self-love school? I'm like, not really. It's not like we're going to teach you how to
Right,
self-love,
right.
how because we're not doing that. I feel like it's more a self-love expedition.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what's so exciting about it. Honestly, if it was teachable, it would probably there's just no magic in it because it's so individual. The process, the discovery of self-love is a beautiful journey. And if you could teach this journey, you would be devaluing it. What makes it so incredibly fun and exciting is that each person's journey must, almost by definition, be tailored to their exact environment because it's their world. What we are doing is loving this interior space that is truly us. And because everybody's interior space is different, everybody's journey has to be different.
I love what you just said. The loving your interior space.
Yeah,
That is something that's very doable, I feel like.
right, right.
And in even loving, like it might be hard to imagine, but you can learn to love even the challenges, even the heartaches, even the low moods.
Absolutely.
That's a part of the interior space. That's only a
Absolutely.
piece that happens, occurs within it. But
Right.
I love that you called it a space
Yeah.
because that's really what it is. It's this exploration is a gateway to an inner world that is so expansive.
Yes. It's infinite.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
would say it's infinite. And it's really, I mean, I hate to say this, but to me, it's the secret of an enjoyable life
Hmm.
because it sounds so simplistic when I say it that way. But all of our conditioning and all of the cultural, biases that are imposed upon us as we learn to live in this world always tempt us to go outward and almost never encourage us to go inward. And so we don't have really any guideposts or training in this internal journey. But the payoff is incredible once we decide, oh, I actually really do want to work on self because that is where you live. That is where you live. And so, what would be more important than making where you live as loving and cozy and beautiful a space as you could?
Well, that's what we're gonna be up to. And
Yes.
I love this. I'm so excited to continue to explore this with you, Scott, and possibly with more people. So if you'd like to join our exploration, our expedition, then reach out to us. And thank you for joining me today, Scott. It was
Thank
really
you so much.
a
This
fun
was
conversation.
really exciting. I
Yeah.
love it.
This is the Releasing Mental Tension podcast with Rich Life. I'm on a mission to help people release their mental tension because I know that it helps them to be more capable, creative, and compassionate human beings. And I need your help. Please like, comment, subscribe. If you'd like more resources, visit richliferealization.com. Your vibrant life is a single thought away.